And I was traveling all over the United States. I had a 1-year-old daughter born in Houston, and my mother-in-law called me, and she said, "You're just traveling all over the United States. You're just going here and fro." And she said, "You can travel out of San Antonio's airport."
The Texas Hill Country is one of the most beautiful places on earth. In this podcast, recent Hill Country resident Tom Fox visits with the people and organizations that make this one of the most unique areas of Texas. Join Tom as he explores the people, places, and their activities of the Texas Hill Country.
Find out more about this great musical event in this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and you're in for a real treat today because I have Kenneth O'Neal with me. Kenneth, I guess I would call you a personal coach, an enterprise coach, a leadership coach, or maybe just a coach. Whatever it is, we're going to figure that out today. If maybe you could start telling us a little bit about your professional background.
Professionally and through my early education, I went to school at the University of South Florida and obtained a degree in accounting and went to work for what was then Boss, and they later on merged with Deloitte. And today they're part of that firm, and Deloitte is the largest accounting firm in the world today. Great people, and really enjoyed it a great deal. I had very large clients, worked on some really significant businesses out of Atlanta, Georgia. And then I was transferred to Houston, and that's how I got to Texas. I got here as quick as I could. Is that what they say? Yeah, my professional background is in public accounting with the large firm.
What brought you to
Kerrville? I came to Kerrville after I got out of the public accounting. I still had my business consulting firm that was part of the accounting firm. And I was traveling all over the United States. I had a 1-year-old daughter born in Houston. And my mother-in-law called me, and she said, "You're just traveling all over the United States. You're just going here and fro." And she said, "You can travel out of San Antonio's airport." And she said, "I found a house for you today, and you need to come look at it and make sure you like it." So we ended up moving to Kerrville in August of 1995. So I've been here 27 years now.
So tell us about your current role, current business, or however you care to characterize that.
The way I look at it is I went through the training and all the courses for the Zigler Corporation. Now, everybody knows Zig Ziglar. They've heard him for years. And on Facebook, I think that they say that Zig Ziglar has influenced over 250 million people in the 5 decades that he spoke from the stage. And lots of times, he was speaking to significant audience, 25, 30,000 people. So you can see where he impacted the lives of a lot of people. So in 2015, I had what I call a dastardly D happen to me. And that dastardly D was a divorce. And I felt rejected. I felt all of the negative things you could talk about. It all came to fruition. But then I started researching and reading and actually screaming out to God saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" Because I always thought I was a pretty good guy. But I went through the training and I saw the significance in, I have this thing that's called the sin of the desert. And the sin of the desert is if you know where the water is, but you don't tell anybody. After I got all that content and I could see the impact of it, and it was meeting my purpose in life, which is to serve others. And Ziglar's main point was that if you help just enough other people to get what they want out of life, you will get what you want. Serve, that's it. And I look upon that as the purpose in life. So that sin of the desert, if I don't share all of the training, all the coaching, and trying to be a difference maker in people's lives, then I'm guilty of the sin of the desert. So I need to get on the platform, get on your podcast, get on the radio, get in front of people. And I just came back from a workshop over in Charlotte, North Carolina, and with my coaching clients, I meet with them every week, and we go through all the material and the philosophy of Zig Ziglar, all right, of integrity. And integrity, the byproduct of integrity is trust. And so you have to have trust and respect and continuing to share. And where right after I got all of the license, all of the training completed, I went to Rwanda in Africa, and I gave a speech at a hospital there, 300-bed hospital, and started working with the people there, and ended up working with about 25 or 30 orphan children. And they had been, you remember in 1994, the genocide in Rwanda.
Sure.
Okay, so we were only, that was 94, so I was there in 25. So that was only 20 years before I went to Rwanda. And I met all these little kids, and they had caregivers. So each individual child from age 4 to 14 had a caregiver. And my big deal with my public accounting background, my financial interests, we started putting business plans together for people in a little town up in the hills in Kibagora. And we started little bitty businesses. We had a guy repaired bicycles, worked on cell phones. We started a little manufacturing where we got some sewing machines, and they made shirts and pants and uniforms. And so the whole idea was to have resources to the caregivers. And on Facebook, I have a picture. I had a 105-year-old lady, 105, was taking care of an 11-year-old. And it just broke my heart. It broke my heart. And they've been supporting people over there ever since 2015, 2016. But the whole idea of sharing all this information, and I do it off of a thing we call the Wheel of Life, which is the 7 areas of your life, going all the way from your mental, your physical, your spiritual. In spirituality, we look at character development. Who are you? Are you a person of integrity? And you have to be before you can do. But if you be and do the right things, you can have everything that you want out of life. And that program was done at Schreiner University here in Kerrville with the Greystone Preparatory School. These were kids, 18, 19, and they had actually been rejected by the military academies. They got, we called it the little white envelope. You're a good kid, but we don't have room for you this year. They would come to us, and we would put them in the program. They were students at Schreiner, freshman students, so that gave them their college academy, and I looked with them, and we worked every day on their mental input. Of course, their mental input at that time, definitely all the academics at Schreiner University. And our goal was to make a 4.0. Going through the program, we went through goal setting, achieving, winning relationships, and the circle of life, the well-balanced life for those kids. And the mental input, of course, related to their academics. And they ended up, we had 25 to 45 students. And we were in business for 16 years. It actually was shut down at the end of 2020 because of COVID, really. But so those kids had a 3.92 GPA, 3.92. And they were taking physics and organic chemistry and all the things because we were trying to prove to the academies, you made a mistake by not taking this kid. 9 out of 10 of our kids, and I have to call them kids. I had a ball working with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds. They were just fantastic. But 9 out of 10 got an academy appointment or either became a second lieutenant through the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC. So we're a very successful program. It was just absolutely wonderful. But see, that, once again, that was that information. And we would equip them to turn around and equip others by serving. So they became a second lieutenant. And one of the chapters in my book of Gumption is that what does a second lieutenant really need for brand new cadets coming into the squadron? What he needs is he or she needs to have empathy. Empathy. I walked in your shoes. I know where you're coming from. And the whole idea is that you'll have a conversation. All right, we want to respond to people. We don't want to react to people. There's also a chapter in the book where I talk about the relationship between two Supreme Court justices, Ginsburg and Scalia. They were so far apart when it came to the law and to the Constitution. But I envision that when they were young clerks, they got to work together. Maybe they're at the library studying or whatever. But one of them, either Ruth or Antonio, one of them said, I like you. I like spending time with you. I know we have our disagreements, but I still like spending time with you. And it came to fruition. They found a lot of things that were common in their background and the things that they liked. They loved a nice glass of wine. They spent New Year's Eve together, celebrating the new year. One was Catholic and one was Jewish. But there is actually a picture on an elephant in India, the two of them riding. So they love to travel together. But as another Supreme Court justice said, Tony, why are you taking those flowers to her? And he said, it's Ruth's birthday. And he said, you would never get her to agree with you on a 5-4 decision. Why are you giving her flowers? And he looked at him and he said, them ships are really important. So that's what this book of Gumption is all about, is that we want to have effective communicators, effective communication. And I do a lot of this through Mediator. I give the ground rules. When you're watching a baseball game, you're at the ball field and all those guys get around home plate, what are they talking about? Going to lunch? No. They're saying, hey, if the ball goes over the base, goes into the stands, you get an extra base. If you hit it over the fence, it's a home run. So they're giving you guidelines. So I believe that when you have a meeting, leaders of companies, leaders of businesses, when they have a conference and they're having a meeting, you need to come into it with an objective. Everybody should agree that, okay, I'm going to drop my bias. I'm not going to be prejudiced. I'm not going to point a finger at you, and I'm not going to laugh at what you say. All right? We're here to get an agreement. Is everybody up for that? Now, we have lots of barriers in our mind because we know we're just different. We're different. But my whole point is let's look at being effective communicators. Let's talk about what's going on. And I think Benjamin Franklin did it best. He wrote the 13 virtues that he thought he needed to be a better person. Number 9 in there was moderation. Moderation. Everybody thought he was talking about gluttony and all that, but no. What he was saying is be moderate. If somebody points their finger at you and challenges you, is critical toward you, be moderate in your response. Because if you react in a harsh way, because we know that the tongue can heal or harm. So you have to be careful. You got to think. Take 8 to 10 seconds before you ever say a word. In other words, pause and then respond. But don't respond negatively, because if you do, you cut off any conversation. What my goal is to have a conversation. If you want to be a friend, be a friend. And effective communication is the only way we're going to ever do this. And you can disagree with somebody and still love and care for them.
So let's go to talk a little bit about your book. What led you to write this book?
I had been working on it probably 5 or 6 years, making notes on everything, and I kept a journal. And I kept a journal when I was in Africa for the 40-something days we were there. And I got to thinking about it. What's another way that I can continue to put this information out? What's another way? And a friend of mine said the best way to do it is write a book. So I started working on it primarily during COVID, 2020 and 2021. So that brought it to fruition. And I actually finished it early this year. And then the publisher, we had some supply difference trying to get things in to print the books. And we actually ended up launching it. We had a little launch party here in Kerrville and on July the 7th. So it's only been out about 4 weeks. And it did get up to number 2 in certain areas on Amazon. So it really was good. But the big thing is the way it's been received. I've had some terrific people with terrific feedback coming about with the book. But it all started a number of years ago and saying, I think I need to write a book to actually get this information out, get the information about Zigler, his attitudes, and to carry on this legacy that he has so that I can continue to share that information.
Speaking of legacy, one person you've mentioned prominently is Tom Zigler.
Right.
Could you tell us who Tom is and how he continues his father's legacy?
Yeah, Tom's the only son of Zig Ziglar. He had 3 daughters. And when Zig passed away in 2012, remember, when Zig Ziglar was alive, he was on that stage. He was everything in the Zigler Corporation. And Tom was in the back office and working administratively and traveling with his dad and all that. But in 2012, Tom decided to get with a consultant. What can we do with this brand and how do we go forward? And that's when he came up with all the licenses and the certifications, and we actually are Zigler Legacy Coaches. All right. And so Tom is out there. He's written 2 wonderful books. He wrote Choose to Win, and he has a current book out right now called The Virtues, the 10 virtues that leaders must have in disruptive times. And it was written during 2020 and the COVID, and it actually was released in the fall of 2021. But it's all around coaches leading coaches. In other words, taking people that are heads of departments or heads of businesses and paying attention to your employees, paying attention to their well-being. Because of COVID, things changed drastically. And the old school is get the bottom line. We got to make a profit. Now it's tending to change where employers are paying more attention to their employees by saying, what do you guys need? What do you need? Instead of being dictatorial and say, this is the way we're going to do it. So they're now looking at the well-being of their employees. And it's been said that you shouldn't chase money, you should chase people. And if you will help people, they will buy into your business. And so Tom's book is talking about that. Coach leading coaches. And that's a certification that we're actually working on right now to share that with other employers and other management people.
So who's primarily your clients?
My clients are primarily, well, there's a funny thing that somebody asked me that the other day, and I said, well, it'd really be anybody's breathing, because I believe honestly that everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs a coach, somebody to guide them, all right, to guide them along and go with them, go through. I'm going to go here with you. And so my concentration is on small to medium-sized businesses, probably less than 500 employees, but most of them are 25 to 50. And I work closely with the owners because this idea of the owner being a leader, we want to make sure that they can lead their people. I do a lot of stuff on Facebook and blogging, and I've been on a number of podcasts. And so it's really, truly business owners in small to medium-sized businesses. And because of Zoom, because of learning how to do that, they can be anywhere in the world. I'm coaching a number of people that are in Europe and we have to make sure we get the time. I don't want to do something in Great Britain if it's 10 o'clock in the morning. That's 4 a.m. here. I know, I've done it. But it's just, the big thing is sharing. It's sharing this word. And I have this thing that I really believe strongly in, is that you have to ask good questions, but you really want to create a relationship. I tell this story sometimes about the last really big client I had before COVID, was that I just walked in, cold call, and said, I'd like to meet the owner. So I was talking with him, and we just started chatting, and I said, I've used up a lot of your time in 5 or 6 minutes. And I said, why don't I come back later? And the guy says, why don't you just come on to the office now? You're already here, and we can continue our conversation. 3.5 hours later, this guy looked at me and he said, Kenneth, what do you do? We had a great conversation. We talked about business, the economy, and everything. But I never, until he asked me, I never told him, because he and I were having a great relationship. And he's still a client today. But I believe the first step is winning relationships. And the one thing that makes it go is, how do you respond? How do you respond to people? And you got to do it with kindness. You got to do it with respect. And I believe that you have to have expectations from people. I expect people to comply with nature's laws, comply with being a kind person. Because as I said, if you're really upset and angry and critical at someone, what is the mood of that person that does that? Instead of trying to figure out why we can't get together, why we can't have an agreement, is that the communication and caring. In the Gumption book, I use 3 examples. The question of that book, it says, does humankind really care for humankind? And I use 3 examples. Good Samaritan out of the Bible. I used a Rwanda, where the world forgot Rwanda. And then Stephen F. Foster, he back in the late 1880s, and all, he wrote those songs, those folklore songs. Somebody killed him, cut his throat. He was in New York. They took him to Bellevue Hospital. That's where all the transients and everybody went. But he laid in there for days in the morgue. Nobody knew who he was. Finally, a friend of his came looking for him. But how does some of that stuff happen? And so I want us to be kind and considerate and respectful of other people's rights, and see if we can all become effective communications with gumption. And that word gumption means a high road of life, living on that high road, being diverse, being equal, and making sure that all are included. And it's a way of life. It's not like motivation. Every day we need to be motivated. But gumption is the lifestyle. It's always, we know how you're going to react. Okay, you're loyal to your beliefs. And so people with gumption, and I say there was 2 that I know had gumption, the way I'm defining it, and that's Jesus Christ and Zig Ziglar, okay? And I also tell that in the book.
Pretty rare company.
That's right. But you know what Zig said about Jesus Christ? Somebody pointed the finger at Zig one time and said, you're taking that out of the Bible. And Zig said, yeah, the writer of that is a good friend of mine, and he won't mind me using it. So I really love the attitude, the community of Zigler, and the people that you can count on.
So let's turn to my favorite place in Texas, which is the Hill Country.
Oh, I love the Hill Country, yeah.
So you told us, I think you moved here in 1995, and what brought you here. But what are 2 or 3 of your favorite things, either about the Hill Country or what makes you feel this is one of the most special parts of Texas?
That's an excellent question, but so I had 2 kids that grew up in Kerrville, graduated from Tivy High School. One of them went to Texas State, the other one went to Baylor, and then on to Texas A&M, so pretty deep roots here. And as they were growing up and all of the opportunities that they had as they were growing up, one of the things that we found early was Moe Ranch out there on the river. And the kids could go. They had a day camp where they'd pick them up at Walmart, take them out there, and bring them back. And my kids did it until they aged out of the thing, really. So I love Moe Ranch. I love what they do. And I don't know if you've ever been out there on Thanksgiving Day. They have that great big Thanksgiving dinner.
Easter, too.
Yeah, that's right.
We went for Easter this year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then we've met some really great friends that there are so many youth camps in this whole area. And I can name a bunch of them.
That's the reason I'm here.
You went to Camp Stewart. Okay, my son Pierce went to, all right, and Claire went to Mystic. Okay, so love that. It's such a great impact on the area with people coming and staying here, going to dinner, and all of the people at those camps are wonderful, and we go back a long way with that, all right? And then the third thing that I really liked a great deal, I've been a member of Rotary for a long time, just finished up my term at the Morning Rotary as president last year, but when I was in the Noon Club for, 8 or 9 years, I was the program chairman, all right? And so I'd call, and one of the things last week I ran into a friend of mine, and he said, Kenneth, I remember those programs you did at Rotary. Boy, they were so good. And I remember one time somebody said, you need to call Hay, all right, who was a PhD in music and just a terrific guy, led the symphony for a while and was out at Shriner. And I'm calling, I never got an answer. And then finally, all of a sudden, one day, I got a call, and it was him on the phone, Jay Donahue. And he said, I'm sorry, I hadn't answered your call. He said, but I'm in Poland. I can't speak this week. And then I got to thinking about it, and I met so many wonderful people. And the resources that in this town, from a classical music, people on stage, we've got the Kalu, and then we got the theater out on the river in Ingram. The resource people that have retired here. Well, like you, look at your background. You came to the camps and everything, and you came back, and the experiences that you have, and we can share all this information. And so I'm just amazed look at all these guys that went to the moon and everything. You live out in Hunt. Great. The school system, the kids going to Moe Ranch, and then the camps themselves, and then the resources that are in this town. It's, like you said, it's a very special place. It really is.
Kenneth, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time, but I wondered if our listeners wanted any more information on yourself, your book, or your consulting practice, what would be the best way for them to find out? Oh,
wonderful. Thank you for that. They can call me on my phone. That's one way, 830-285-7010, 830-285-7010. And they can also just leave me a text there. That's my cell phone. I have it all the time. They can go to my website, crowneal.com. And that's with a K-R, Crowneal. Last name O-N-E-A-L, but it's Crowneal, K-R-O-N-E-A-L.com. And on the website, they'll see some blogs, they'll see some beautiful pictures of the river, but they can get me there. And then my email address is merger, one word, and that comes from my accounting days. I used to do a lot of mergers, acquisitions, putting packages together to sell people, sell their business, do exit strategies. So the word is merger, M-E-R-G-E-R, at windstream.net.
And where can they find your book?
They can go to Amazon. They can get a Kindle if they want it. They can get a soft copy, or they can get a hard copy. And it's on Amazon.com.
Kenneth, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to visit with me, and I hope we can continue this conversation.
Me too. I love it. I love your postings, and the compliance part really gets into my spirit as an accountant. Thank you.
This is Tom Fox again. We're going to link to Kenneth O'Neal's website and his book and LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So I hope you will check all of those resources out. He's got some really great ways for the compliance professional or other business executive to look at things. I hope you will join me for another episode of the Hill Country Podcast. I'm preparing some fall episodes, and I know you will enjoy some of the upcoming guests as I explore the people, places, and things in what I think is the most special part of Texas. The Hill Country Podcast was recently honored with Communicator Awards in Storytelling and Best Local Podcast. Thanks for listening.